This is Rob Booker, and this is the weekly webinar at fxstreet.com. Glad that you could join me. If you're a regular attendee to Chart School and you didn't see it this morning, it's because I wanted to sleep in today, and I was exhausted. But I wouldn't miss the FX Street webinar for the world. I want to go over a couple of things to start us off. Number one, I want to share with you a picture of last week's Trade of the Week information. I'm not really sure this is exactly what we were looking at last week. Now that I look at it again, I wonder if this is exactly what we were looking at. Let's take a minute and see if last week this is what we looked at. And you should be able to see my Euro chart right now. It looks like a 60-minute, 5-minute sell down to a green baseline. Yeah, that's an old one. That's actually not the one we looked at last week. I know we did look at the New Zealand dollar, Japanese yen, over the course of the last 2 weeks. We've been looking at this one. And here you go. I mean, we did fall below the blue entry line and fell down to the green baseline. And I remember that one pretty specifically. I don't know if you remember that one pretty specifically. But a week ago, we went over this chart and we talked about selling it if it closed below the blue entry line and targeting the green baseline. And everything happened pretty much exactly as we were expecting it to happen and as we wanted it to happen. Thank you for the newspaper. All right. There's the Euro dollar chart. We're going to get rid of that. Here's the dollar Canadian. The dollar Canadian recently, and I think we've looked at this once before, but I wanted to track it once again. It broke every one of our entry trend lines, and then it got within like 2 pips or 3 pips of the green baseline, and then it fell away from that green baseline. That's over. We don't care about that anymore. Here's the pound Swiss. Boy, the pound Swiss, I remember looking at this one a bunch. We might look at that one again today. So what I'm going to do here is remove all the tools from this page, and then I'm going to start back up with that one. There's the dollar yen 3-minute chart. Anybody remember anything that we did with the dollar yen? Boy, we looked at a few things on this one, and I'm going to remove all of the tools on this chart as well. We're going to start from scratch. We don't usually look at the dollar yen, but I'm going to look at the dollar yen and the euro dollar and the pound Swiss to start things off today. Well, I'll get you up on the dollar yen chart. No problem, folks. There you go. There's your dollar yen chart. You should be looking at it right now. So we'll spend the next few minutes and we'll be looking at the dollar yen. And we're going to look in the short term because I think over the next couple of days, some of the best opportunities in any of these support and resistance trades are going to be on the shorter term charts, on the smaller term charts. We have a range on the dollar yen that extends from 88 even up to 89. And as you know, if you've been reading about the yen lately, you've been reading that there could be intervention down near the 87 level. And intervention means that the Japanese government, when the dollar falls too far down, wants to prop it up by actually going into the market and buying dollars and selling Japanese yen. Well, that's obviously here that whether it's intervention or not, there's a huge amount of trepidation about the dollar yen falling lower than 90. I mean, it got down to 88 even, and exactly at that number it bounced back up. That lends some credibility to the notion that the Japanese government wants to intervene or is willing to intervene. Intervention doesn't really work. I mean, over time, the dollar yen is going to go wherever it wants to go, no matter what the Japanese government wants to spend. However, in the meantime, it can slow a decline because it starts to scare people out of the market. It can start to scare people away from trading. And for long-term traders, people who hold for long periods of time, you can be in a trade that you expect to go down to a certain level, and they can intervene quickly. And in 10 minutes, a long-term trade can reverse to your stop loss, which is a pain in the butt, total pain. So as you look at the dollar yen, keep those things in mind, that if you're holding positions for long periods of time, you could have a stop loss that's 150, 200 points away, and you could turn around to your computer in 5 minutes and it can hit your stop loss, which is why trading in the short term with small stop losses and small profit targets during a time of intervention on a currency pair can be the way to go. So we're looking at a range in between 89.50 and 88. And you're right, the pound yen just changed like a rocket ship this morning, and that's exactly what we're talking about here. All the yen pairs seem to move pretty significantly all at the same time. Let's go down to the 5-minute chart and see what it's doing inside this range. It's not doing too much inside this range right here, but I do expect that if you're trading the dollar yen, that or the pound yen for that matter, that here's a couple of things to look for. Look for a break back down through the middle of this range, like right through the juicy center of this range, where you see that box right there. There was some support and resistance there, still is. And if it breaks down through the middle of that range and closes below, let's say 88.60, I would expect it to fall all the way down back to the bottom of the range. That's simple support and resistance. It's horizontal support and resistance. And a stop loss would go back above 88.80 or so. And that is just like scalping, short term, not much to it. And purely also based on the fact that a move like we saw this morning that just rockets upwards is often likely to reverse pretty quickly and pretty significantly and severely. I'm going to change this over just for the sake of being interested in it. I'm going to change this over to the pound yen and have you watch this. You'll notice that this morning it just tore upwards like a rocket ship, of course, and it just dropped right back down like 100 points within just a 25 or 30 minute period of time. So there's a huge amount of volatility in that back and forth right now. Mystic says he's long 40.88 and just added another position at 141.21. It's awesome. Awesome to hear from you. Here's the euro dollar. Let's make sure you're able to see the euro dollar chart. All right, here's the euro dollar. 5-minute chart. I'm looking at a really short-term trend line on the 5-minute chart now. There's only two things that are going to happen here this morning. Even still, even as it gets a little bit later in the day, there's only two things that are going to happen here. One is it's going to break above this trend line that we're looking at right here. And that means that we're going to get some movement up maybe to 4,700 even first. And then maybe all the way up to retrace to the place where we started the trend line. You could have that. Or you could get a bounce right here, and we'll look at it on a shorter term chart. This is a 1-minute euro dollar chart. Or you could get a bounce right here. Bearish candles that come back lower below 46.75. And then you could have a pretty significant and strong move down towards 46.50. And what we're going to do right here is maybe come back to this every now and then and watch this. But I'm encouraged that it made a higher high than it did the last time. And I'm encouraged by the fact that, it's the end of the morning sessions here, and it would not be strange to see this correct back upwards a bit. All right. So I'm going to mark this down for trade of the week. 5-minute trend line trade up to at least 4,700 and possibly beyond. Excellent. All right, let's look at the pound Swiss. I'd love to look at the pound Swiss right now. Looks like we're reversing just a bit off these highs. We're going to look at the 30-minute chart. This is the British pound Swiss franc. And what you'll notice is, and the reason I'm interested in this, is we just broke above the trend line this morning. We just broke above this 30-minute pound Swiss entry line this morning. And the currency pair just can't seem to deal with this break. It's just not dealing with the movement. It doesn't want to continue, at least right now. And it just got stopped cold at 64.22. When we come back, we'll consider what we're going to do about that. The euro dollar, on the other hand, is breaking above our trend line. So it's a buy trade at 46.90, and we're going to try at first to get up to 4,700. If it goes below 46.75, then that's over. Then We want nothing to do with that trade. Jen's asked if we could look at the cable dollar. And Mystic says at one point he was up on the pound yen 105 pips. It's so hard not to close it. It moves so much you don't want to close it sometimes. But 105 is pretty damn awesome, Chris. Watching the euro dollar, some of you might wonder, what do we do? Is this movement back down towards the trend line a bad sign? Well, I'll just say a couple things. This is the 1-minute chart for the euro dollar for those of you wondering or that just joined us. And I want to see immediate feedback in candles that go in my direction. I want to see movement that demonstrates that I've made the correct decision and that other traders, especially, like people trading a lot of money, other traders like that are adding to their positions, or that bank traders are adding to their positions, and that the currency pair is excited about going over this trend line. I don't want to see a currency pair that can't make it above the trend line more than just a little bit. And if it falls back down below our trend line, then I'm just sort of not interested as much in this currency pair anymore and this trade anymore. I want to see it stay above the trend line, and I'd really like to now see it go above the highest level that it went when it broke above the trend line, right there. I'd love to see it go above 46.92. Very short-term stuff here, like super short-term. If you see anything interesting on this currency pair, call us back to the currency pair, and we'll take a look at the pound Swiss. Pound Swiss is now dropping significantly and fairly quickly. And here's what I want to say about the pound Swiss. If I bought the currency pair above the 30-minute trend line, and that I'd taken that trade, and now it was going back down below the trend line with a significantly strong bearish movement, I would be interested in getting out of my trade and taking a really tight stop loss, small loss, and then getting back in this trade all over again if it can rise up above 64.22, which is the highest point the pair made before it fell back down below the trend line. So it broke above the trend line, it got to 64.22, it fell back lower. If now we can get back above 64.22, I think this thing is a rocket ship upwards. I mean, I think it would go very quickly. On the second leg or the second attempt, I think it would be a significant and very strong move. That is a terrible trend line, but I'm gonna rework that right now. And there you have it. If the currency pair can break above 64.22, then a buy trade with a stop loss down below, and these are big stop losses. I mean, your real stop loss ought to go down at 62.72, so you're gonna have to trade this with a really small trade size. Alternatively, you could have a stop loss down below 63.55. Still a very small trade size. I mean, on a $10,000 account, maybe a 1 mini lot trade. And then add to your position at 64.65, maybe 65.15, 65.55, and then get out at 66.05. Take a bunch of trades all the way up there towards that profit target. So 30-minute trendline trade to green base line from 4-hour chart. Okay, I'm getting news that the euro dollar has broken back upwards. That's fantastic news. We want to see it get to 4,700, and the reason we want to see it get to 4,700 isn't necessarily to only move our stop loss to break even. We want to tighten up our stop at that point. That's for darn sure. We might want to tighten our stop to break even. We might want to tighten our stop to something like 46.80, and then we want to try for more. Or it's just a scalping trade at that point, and we want to just get out of the trade completely and take 5 or 7 pips of profit. All right. I love seeing this movement right now on the short-term charts. I mean, if you're a short-term trader, this is kind of what you like to see. At least I do anyway. I like to see quick movement But I like time to get in the trade. You know, I at least like the chance to get in the trade and watch it. Now I would like it to move. Since we're all in the trade or not, now I would like it to move a significant amount. Okay, I'm going to replicate this pound Swiss chart. I'm going to remove all the tools. And I'm going to ask, would one take profit and enter again, or let the trade run and keep tightening stop loss? You could take the profit and re-enter again, absolutely. Or you could keep tightening the stop loss. That'd be fine, Jez. Whatever works for you in your own testing and in your own trading. But for me, I'd prefer to stay in the trade and add to my position and maybe tighten the stop loss up. Who would like to look at a currency pair, and what currency pair would you like to look at? Let's look at the pound dollar first, and then maybe do a request for anybody that would like to look at something else. This is the pound dollar 30-minute chart. It's the pound dollar 60-minute chart. Let me know if anything interesting happens on the euro. There's the 60-minute chart. Looks like the currency pair could be falling down to that level or rising up to that level right there. I think we'll focus on the buy side first. Color this green. There's the British pound US dollar. That's the 60-minute chart. I'm going to go down now to the 15-minute chart. I'll keep the word pound dollar around just so we remember what we're looking at here. And I want to look at a short-term trend line. Look, wow, that is a really short-term trend line. I might even get it shorter term than that on the 5-minute chart. Take the two most recent moves there. There you have it. That is really short-term. That's a 5-minute trend line right here in this area. And I would say a buy above that trend line, stop loss down below 58, 56, and a profit target all the way up at $1.06 at 1.6 thousand. That would be totally reasonable. So I'm just writing down the three trades that we've talked about so far. So you're looking at the trades of the week. So far we've looked at a euro dollar 5-minute trade that's open or just about to close or whatever. Pound Swiss 30-minute trend line trade and a pound dollar 5-minute trade. Go back to the charts here. So that's a pound dollar. I also have an idea for a pound dollar sell trade, but I want to come back to that in a moment. The euro dollar is not being good to us, and it's basically back down towards the trend line that it broke. I'm not happy with this. If it goes below the trend line, then I'm not happy with the trade anymore. And I'd rather take a very small loss. I'd rather take a loss of 2 or 3 or 4 pips, get out, and then re-enter the trade all over again. But I would stay in the trade forever. So we'll talk about that in just a moment as it goes. Jez asks, so the trick is to use the higher time frame and get the entry on the smaller one. That's exactly right. Nick, it could be due to the oil news in 2 minutes, but I doubt it. I have more to say about the pound dollar. But before I say more about the pound dollar, let's look at the dollar Canadian, since there's oil news coming out. Let's just see, does oil news really move the dollar Canadian? In 2 minutes, it's supposedly coming out. It's a 1-minute dollar Canadian chart. If it rises up, I would expect it to rise up and retest this level of resistance that I've just drawn. If it falls, I would not be surprised. Well, it's already there practically. If it falls, then we would watch for it to fall below this blue trend line right here and maybe fall to a round number low. That would be interesting. Exactly, Kegra. Totally, absolutely agree with you. That's exactly why I'm looking at it. Does the oil news move this currency pair? That is, Kegra, man, you're the dude. That is freaking awesome. AB says, do people react that quickly? Don't they need to think about it a bit? Well, AB, most people don't think about anything a bit. So absolutely not. So here we're just waiting. I'm going to read you a headline from the Wall Street Journal today. U.S. banks are slow to take losses on battered commercial real estate loans, according to a presentation made by the Fed to banking regulators. The findings suggest that the banking industry risks a replay of the bust in the housing market that has slammed the sector. Gosh, are you kidding me? Can you imagine that? If it starts all over again, that would be amazing. So, negative 1 million. And boy, look at the dollar CAD go. I mean, look at it go. Wow. Wow, how amazing. Maybe they're thinking about it for a minute, right? I'll reserve my judgment. Sure, this oil news is going to move it. Watch, it's going to move it. It's going to make it go. The oil news is going to make it move. And is it tradable, right? It's got to be tradable. It's not just that it moves it. It's got to be tradable. Rob says he's long gold. Excellent. Fantastic, Rob. Maybe my chart's stuck. I don't think my chart's stuck. My chart's moving just fine, thanks. Maybe my chart's stuck. That's pretty funny. I don't even know what negative 1 million on oil means. Does that mean there's negative 1 million gallons of oil in my car? Is that what it means? Did you know, everybody, that the Saudi king plans a rare visit to Syria to increase pressure on that country's leader to loosen ties with Iran? Did you also know that AT&T reversed course and said it will allow iPhone users to use Skype and other internet calling services on its cellular network? Fascinating. Did you also know that Wall Street settled a suit over IPO tactics during the dot-com boom for $586 million? Whatever. What's the dot-com boom? What is that? And did you also know that Roman Polanski lost an appeal to be freed from a Swiss jail while the U.S. prepares a request for his extradition? I bet you he's being raped in jail. All right, here we go. Let's actually consider that this currency pair is probably on its way up to the green baseline. If you want to be long the dollar Canadian, the problem is there's no room to really take this trade because we're already 10 pips away from the green baseline. And that means that on the 1 minute chart, there's really not a lot of movement. Not a lot of movement up towards, not a lot of movement or enough movement to get a trade in there, pay a spread, and then get out of the trade and make any money at all. Look at the euro dollar. So the euro dollar, we're long gone out of that position. The euro dollar's long over. If you stopped out at 46.75, fine. If you stopped out at right when it fell below the trend line, fine. But in either instance, you wouldn't want to hold on to something like this and take a significant loss. You don't want to do that. Here's the dollar Canadian. There's no room to take a trade in there. However, it is interesting to watch that support and resistance movement and talk about it briefly. So we'll come back to that in a moment as it climbs upwards. The pound dollar is interesting because we've got a previous low right here, a previous low at pound dollar 58.59. Now, if the pound dollar can move below 58.59, that might signal an opportunity. That might signal an opportunity to sell the currency pair down to 58.28, which is the blue trend line at the bottom of my screen that we drew earlier. And there's that blue trend line at the bottom of my screen. And if we fall below this previous low of 58.59 and just break below that level, get to like 58.55, that could be a sell trade down to 58.28. So 58.30. So I'm just typing this in so you can see this list of trades right here. That's the list of trades. The next one on the list, the fourth one down the list, is pound dollar 5-minute sell trade below the red support down to 58.30. Red support is at 58.60. There you go. There you have it. AB says, with these shorter time frame trend lines, does it matter that there was a horizontal line 46.92 very close to the trend line break? That is actually a fascinating and interesting perplexity. Yes, it would matter, AB. That would matter a lot. AB was mentioning that there was a longer-term horizontal resistance level at 46.92, and that could explain why we saw this reversal right at the 46.92 mark. That would certainly be something that if you were a short-term trader, you might want to pay attention to, yes. And why did I not pay attention to it? AB and I just weren't communicating about it right there. That's all. In any case, tight stop loss. Not a whole lot of room for these currency pairs to move against you, and so forth. All right, AB was thinking. Let's move on and let's do one more chart. Since we did see something on the U.S. dollar Japanese yen. Let's go ahead and look at the Australian dollar U.S. And we'll look at something a little bit longer term. We'll start with the 60-minute or the 4-hour chart. The 4-hour chart. If we come back down, we're likely to retest this level. It's going to take a while for this to happen. It's not going to happen overnight. This is the Australian dollar U.S. dollar 4-hour chart. And we're going to follow it up with a look at the 60-minute chart here. Gosh, there is almost no place to draw a trend line right now. Currency pair has been moving upwards so far and so fast. You might go down to a really short-term chart, like a 5-minute, 15-minute perhaps. Yeah, just like right there. And see this short-term trend line right here. And maybe if we close below that short-term trend line, that would be a sell trade stop loss, a really tight stop loss above 89.20, and a profit target way down at 86.18. So you could do maybe a sell trade at 88.75, stop loss 50 pips away, profit target 200 and something pips away. Take profit at 88.20 for a short-term profit target, and profit target all the way down at 86.18 for a longer-term profit target. So we got a lot of trades of the week. There we go. I added the last trade to the set of trades we're looking at today. Let's talk for a minute while we're looking at this chart here. Let's talk for a minute and let me ask you, what kind of questions or comments or otherwise do you have? What kind of things do you want to talk about? I mean, there was an Australian interest rate hike, by the way, people, and that's part of the reason the Australian dollar has done so well. Are you in Central Time? No, I'm in Pacific U.S. time. I'm in California. Do you take trades that contradict each other? No, I usually trade in one direction. Is that a recording of your MetaTrader Is there a recording of my MetaTrader presentation? Now, which one are we talking about there? A recording of my MetaTrader presentation. I'm not sure exactly what one you're talking about. Happy to answer that question, but I'm not exactly sure what you're discussing. Recently released. For any recently released presentations, you would go to, for any recently released presentations, you would go to robbooker.com/postcard. So, and it would probably be there. And you can register for free. It's all free. You don't have to pay anything. Let's take a look at the euro pound for our friend Chris. It may never come down. Holy moly. Oh, it's coming down. Oh, it's coming down. It goes below 92.25. Yeah, that's what I think on the euro pound. Okay, one more trade here. This is a lot of trades of the week. This is way too many. Oh, sorry. There you go. There's your chart. Euro pound 60-minute chart. Sell below 92.25. There's so many false breaks of trend lines. Do you like to filter it anywhere or take all your breaks? What I like to do is cut my losers off really quickly to answer your question. And I want to ask you all a question. Is it mod today? Mod today? No. Is it mod today? Yes. Is it mod today? No. Is it mod today? Yes. Is it mod today? No. Is it mod today? No. No. Yes. No. Yes. See other questions. Let me talk a little bit more about trendline breaks and false breaks. Here's my belief system on trendline breaks and false breaks. That you can spend a lifetime filtering out the false breaks. You can spend the rest of your life filtering it out. And every few months, whatever you're using to filter out the breaks will fail. It will start to fail. And you will be disappointed in it. And you will just be mad about it. Or you can cut off your losers really quickly and pile onto your winners. And you can avoid those circumstances. The money isn't in finding a filter, in my opinion. The money is in cutting off your losers really quickly and or adding to your winners and maximizing your gain. Maud, will I be doing this next week, or are we taking 1 week off because I will be at the ITC? Next week is the ITC. Excellent. Well, I'll do it. I'll do it either way. We'll be trading live for our event in Barcelona, so I will not do a webinar. Okay, no webinar next week. Come to the ITC. Maud might still let you in. Well, I would do it, Maud. I would totally broadcast live from the ITC. Let me do it. Let me broadcast live from the ITC. Please. Okay, I love you all. Thank you. Have a nice day. Really looking forward to seeing you next week from the ITC. I'll turn on my webcam and everything. You're the best, everybody. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. Have a nice day. Thank you, Maud. Thank you, Vicky.